we always talk about the rat race, getting out of the rat race. But if you take a step back and you realize that the world is happening around you, whether you're grinding inside a library or not,
Yep.
um, and that kind of has shaped a lot of the way that I think.
Mhm.
As long as you have a healthy outlook on life, you try to be healthy, you exercise, you eat well, you feel better, you're going to live a longer and happier life. And that's what I want to do.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Chris Massey, an interventional pain management physician practicing in Austin, Texas. We discuss his journey from training to practice, his approach to financial independence, and how he's exploring real estate investing while balancing career and family life. Here we go. Well, here we are. We're recording in the evening here in the late night hours. And I'm in Eastern, you're in Central. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Brad. Thank you for having me.
The journey of time zones is always wonderful when you start communicating across those time zones. But Central and Eastern, that's not too bad. The funny part that I've noticed is whenever, we do a lot of Zooms these days or virtual meetings, it is pitch black here. And where you're at, the sun is almost still shining, isn't it?
It's still shining. We got another hour or an hour and a half before it comes down.
That's nice.
In Texas, summer comes a little bit earlier than others. So it's still very warm here.
Yeah. That's awesome. Hey, Drew, so you are interventional pain management specialist. Tell us a little bit about your medical career and how it evolved to where you're at now.
Yeah, so I am interventional pain. I did my medical school at Texas Tech University in Texas. I went to a residency in anesthesiology at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles, followed by a pain management fellowship at Rush University in Chicago. So kind of lived all around. Interventional pain is the aspect of treating pain with interventions such as lifestyle interventions, injections, exercise, physical therapy, things that are designed to help the patient take control of their pain and help them to lead a longer, happier life.
Interesting. So how far in your journey are you now?
So I've graduated. I graduated from fellowship in 2023, and I completed my first year officially in practice last August. So I'm a year and a half in practice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Currently in the Austin, Texas area. I split my time between Austin and San Marcos, Texas, which, if you've ever been there, is about 30-minute drive in between nothing. Yeah. But it's a nice growing community. It's a lot of good people out here.
Cool. And being early in your career, how do you approach building your career that balances medicine and long-term financial success as well too? Is that something that you've thought about, going up to this point?
It is, yeah. It's something that I've read a lot about. It's something that I've tried to educate myself as much as I can. Whenever we're in med school, we're not making money. Whenever we're in residency, we're making the equivalent of minimum wage, working 80 hours a week. And so a lot of our time is spent just kind of learning what we're doing, especially in residency. You don't have time to do much else. There's a lot of people who do have time to do that, but I'm at that point where I'm just starting to make the quote unquote doctor money. And so I'm just starting to get into my avenues of creating other income streams, investments, getting into real estate. I did a lot of my residency reading and learning as much of this as I can. I read heavily into the White Coat Investor, Passive Income MD, Physician on Fire. Those are three very big bloggers. I don't know if you've ever interacted with them. But they kind of paved the foundation for all of the knowledge that I have. And that's kind of the way I see it. I'm very early on in my career. I see all of the learning that I'm doing as creating a foundation for something to build on for the years to come, to create a nice retirement for my family, to create a good life for my children. I am currently focusing on being the best pain management physician that I can be. One of the best advices that I got from one of my attendings who was financially savvy was the first thing that you need to do is to hone your craft. And so that's what I'm trying to do. This past year, these next couple of years, I'm saving up as much as money as I can at the same time, but I'm trying to hone my craft, be the best doctor I can be the best, especially in pain management, and being the best husband, the best father that I can be, while learning all of these things to use in the future.
Yeah, and at this point now that the ability to delay gratification, live within your means or even under your means is challenging. And especially when, you have other colleagues or other friends around you that may not be delaying gratification and living under their means. How do you juggle that piece now?
Well, it can be hard, to be perfectly honest, but there's a lot of people who, delayed gratification is something that is kind of ingrained into the physician lifestyle. Like I said, we're not making money in medical school. We're working as hard as we can. We're working so hard we can't. It's nearly impossible to take a job on while you're in medical school. So you're just incurring debt as much as you can possibly get. Residency, you're still paying. You may be paying off student loans. They may be in deferment. Their interest rate may still be rising. During my residency, a lot of it was through COVID, so our interest rates were deferred at that point. But you're still not making a ton of money, at least compared to your utter potential. And so now at this time, I'm freshly out of school. Like I said, I'm married. I have 3 children. My focus is on them, not necessarily on being financially independent, not being able to use my money to go take extravagant lifestyle vacations that a lot of people assume physicians take. I'm still paying off my student loans, which takes a big chunk of that salary. And it's just kind of one of those things where I have a plan out and I know that eventually it'll get much easier. Yeah.
And keeping focused on your niche is really important. Like you're saying, keep the one thing and be able to feed these other things in. So it's hard to juggle the time and try to figure out, okay, where are the investment opportunities? Because that all takes time. Even passive investing takes time because you've got to invest the time up front in order for that thing to really pay off. And then you add the kids and the family and everything in there. So there's so many challenges there, Chris. You're right on the spot, like trying to figure this out. And you mentioned the blog piece and reading up through residency. Is that where you find a lot of your information, is on blogs, on websites?
So that's where I start for sure. But yeah, the blogs are the biggest source. They're the people who have already gathered all this information for me. They write it into an easy to read format, something that works well for my time schedule where I don't have a lot of time to go to multiple different websites to research different things. They have everything concisely there into one blog post. I really like that formula. It makes sense to me. It's written out in a way that's designed to make sense to physicians. And so that, for me, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah. You mentioned White Coat Investor. You mentioned Physicians on Fire, right? That the financial independence, retire early movement. Yeah. And then there was a third one that you mentioned. Which one was that?
That was Passive Income MD.
PIMD. Yeah. So there are great, 3 great platforms there. What are some of the biggest things that caught your eye in those platforms, in the blog reading that you're doing there?
So the biggest thing that caught my eye was, or the thing that I kind of resonated with is, everything is the magic of compounding, right? Where everything you put it in, the earlier you get in, the earlier you're saving for retirement, the more it's going to be in a few years. I really like the white coat investor, where his basic thing is you fill up the buckets, you fill up your retirement accounts, you pay off your student loans, you pay off your retirement accounts, you do everything, and then you have whatever you have left over. That's where you take the fund, because once those buckets are filled up, you're going to be set for retirement. That's his main focus.
Yeah.
Physician on Fire is about saving up as much money physically as you possibly can, living well below your means, so that you can use that money to save it up earlier and retire earlier. Passive Income MD, his main focus is, his big focus is real estate, finding ways, like you said, to create passive income, which of course takes a lot of work up front. And so those differing philosophies, they all end up going to the same goal, and they all have the same central message. Save up early on, save up as much as you possibly can. And that's what resonates with me.
In that real estate piece, when the time comes, what are some of the, I guess, things that stick out to you, and whether it's asset class or types of investing, what are some of the things that you're seeing that may be attractive to you?
So I've actually had a lot of conversations with this with my wife. I'm not 100% sure where we will end up going, because we've talked about short-term rentals, we've talked about long-term rentals, we've talked about the pearls and the pitfalls of those. If we bought a house and we rented it for Airbnb, we'd have to maintain it every day. We'd have to deal with people who are difficult tenants. We'd have to deal with potentially it being empty for weeks out of the year. Long-term rentals maybe sounds a little bit more stable, but then somebody's going to, hopefully not, but it's potential somebody could wreck the place as they leave it. And so costing much more in damage. We'd have to pay for all the maintenance throughout. There's a lot of little things that, make it worth it for us, a lot of things that don't make it worth it for us.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of one of the things that we're trying to educate ourselves on, to try to figure out what's going to be best for us in the long run.
Is your wife a physician as well?
No, she's not.
Okay.
She's currently staying home with the kids, but she's actually a fashion designer by training.
Oh, that sounds fun. Does she design your clothes there?
No, these are, she did not. However, I've told her she should design scrubs. She said they're too boring to design.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, that's an interesting opportunity, Chris, because that, I'm sure you've probably seen this before, the real estate professional status. When you can get that, there's ways that you can benefit from some depreciation, just some extra tax benefits in that particular setup. But when it comes down to which property, man, it's hard. I wish there was like an easy button. The thing that I do like about the approach that we took was kind of like starting small and learning ourselves, whether it's management or whatever, because I don't know if you've heard this before. When you scale, you can scale good and you can scale bad. So if you start out just going after it and getting stuff, whether it's short term or long term or whatever, you have a propensity to just multiply or compound, like you were saying before, the good or the bad. So starting small and being able to understand, what should your money be performing like? Where should I even start looking at properties? What makes a good property? How should my money be returning? What should be the cash flow each month? What are some typical problems that come up? Who's supposed to manage those problems? So if you have that on a smaller perspective, maybe a little easier to take in. But at the same time, if you're looking at 8 units, 10 units, something it's not horribly big, but you've got one insurance policy, you've got one tax bill, and sometimes you got one roof to manage those things. So there's kind of like this intermediate ground, depending on the available capital, that would allow you to do a little bit of scaling, but still keep it on the smaller side. Now, the short term and the long term, what attracts you towards the short term?
Well, so when I was in medical school, we did Airbnb had just come out, and so
Mhm.
there was a summer where I did Airbnb. We rented out our spare bedroom for $25 a night, which at the time was like just above average for
Mhm.
around. I think Airbnb was much cheaper back then.
Mhm.
I like the idea that it's a little bit more money up front than short term. But nowadays it feels like it's been kind of regulated a lot. There's a lot of, money that has to go into a management, has to go into cleaning
Mhm.
everything. People break stuff, things like that.
Yeah.
And none of it's guaranteed.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's we have Airbnbs, we have long terms, and there's challenges in each. So
Mm-hmm.
things that jump into my mind, Chris, are the amount of capital that's available to put in. So that's really going to drive kind of which direction too, along
Right.
with the time. So even if you have a management on Airbnb, typically on those short terms, we see between 15 and 20% that the property management will charge because it's more labor intensive. And you
Right.
can automate certain things like cleaning and all those things. In the long term, the property management costs a little less. But yeah, like you're saying, you have some of the similar problems as well too. Sometimes you don't have to have as much money out front on the long terms as you would on the short terms because short term is you're gonna have a nicer place, right? And when I go scroll
Mm-hmm.
through the pictures, it's got to be a pretty nice place. It makes me think, have you seen anything about syndications yet? Have you looked at syndications at all?
Not really, no. I mean, I've heard a little bit about it. I've read like a few posts here and there about it, but honestly,
Yeah.
not really.
So syndication is going to be more passive than so short term and long term, definitely active. Short term is
Mm-hmm.
probably the most active of them, but you actively have to go and acquire, actively have to manage. But in the syndication style, that's definitely more of a passive style investment where you can keep the one thing, and all that time it really is going to be in the underwriting. So when you're vetting the jockey, if you've ever heard that say, the operator of the deal, once you have that vetted, then it's basically being a silent partner through the process. So you have to make sure you're with the right people. But that requires probably the least amount of time when you're doing syndications. And
Mm-hmm.
syndications can be multifamilies, they can be storage, they can be a few different types of asset classes where we're pooling that money together. But
Okay.
yeah, those
That's
are
definitely
those are
something to look
interesting.
into.
What's that?
That's definitely something to look into.
Yeah,
Like I said, I've heard a bit about it, but
yeah,
haven't looked too deeply into it.
yeah. But then again, I mean, you still there's a learning curve of learning how to underwrite deals. What makes a good deal? I know a lot of physicians will do coattail investing. It's almost like human nature too. Oh, Doctor 123 did this, and he got
Yeah.
his money back. So that means it's got to work. But I mean, even for me, I could see an investor that got a good return, and then I'll do it again. But you always have to vet, and it takes time to
Mm-hmm.
understand. What should my money be doing? Is this deal good? Is it not? So again, there's a lots of resources out there that'll help you get through those decisions. But ultimately, it's about mindset, right, Chris? So where was the biggest mindset shift, or if you had a shift, or did you had it from the start that allowed you to start focusing on investing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's on your matches, making sure, like you say, filling up the buckets
Mm-hmm.
for your retirement accounts. Was there a mindset shift that happened that allowed you to do that?
I think, yeah, it's something that happened slowly, I think, over time. Um, it's one of those things, and it's like when I did my residency in LA. This is kind of when I started getting interested in all of these things. During LA, COVID happened. When I was in LA, COVID happened, and we would be in call on the hospital every third day. We had so many patients coming in who tested positive for COVID, who needed intubations, who were sick. We were in the ICU a lot because of that. We had to take care of all those people. During that time, I see all of the mistrust that was brewing within physicians, within doctors, and the medical community in general. Um, everybody at that point seemed to be on two separate sides of the same thing. And we're like, all we're saying is we're trying to help people, and everybody seems to be trying to vilify us for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of that's when I started learning about, declining Medicare reimbursements, physicians getting fired at hospitals, being acquired by other hospital systems and being fired because they decided their job is no longer needed. We had our first child at the time. And that's when I realized, I need to make sure that I have a safety net just in case something happens. Nothing's ever guaranteed. The only thing that I know that it's going to be guaranteed is physician reimbursement is going to continue declining. Medicare is going to start paying less for anything that we do in our clinics. Some of the procedures that we do in pain management are going to be under scrutiny because they don't always work as well as we would hope. And, things like that. Just tell me that there's something that I need to do to hedge myself to prevent any problems when this goes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To me, like separating your time from money, I say this a lot on the show, but finding that way to separate that time from money, even if it's that, like you say, hedge, having that cushion, that fallback, because once you have that, then you don't necessarily have to trade that time to have that money. That
right.
Savings is there because a lot of what physicians do is based off of what you do with your hands,
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
Hey,
exactly.
If you could go, I say, what if we were to jump ahead? Let's take a small step. 5 years. Jump ahead 5 years from now. And what would it take for Chris to be happy, to be where he's at in 5 years?
I say, that's another thing about all this. Through all this, I am happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I am happy now with my wife, with my children. That's enough for me. I don't have any grandeur need for a big lifestyle. I want to give my children everything that I possibly can. So I guess happiness for me would make sure that my wife is comfortable, that she enjoys where we live, that she's happy with our house. She's a fashion designer, so she's never satisfied with the decor of the house. I pity the architect we have to work with in the future if we build a house. I want my kids to be comfortable. I want them to go to a good school. I want them to have, foundational things that I didn't have growing up as a child. And I want them to be able to make sure that they can continue the success and be successful themselves.
That's awesome. Happiness is a decision. If you have decided you're happy and to maintain that decision into the future, I love it. I love it. And the one thing, the same way, I feel the same way, man. I'm happy. I'm so blessed. There's going to be days when it's raining and there's going to be days when it's not, but being happy, having that decision is so important. It's not about the things we have or, the things that we can show other people. Having a home here for our kids, having a wife that's happy, it's a husband that's happy. It's amazing. So, man, I love that answer. Great answer, man.
Thank you. I mean, it's, being happy, enjoying, taking a step back. We always talk about the rat race, getting out of the rat race. But if you take a step back and you realize that the world is happening around you, whether you're grinding inside a library or not.
Yep.
And that kind of has shaped a lot of the way that I think. As long as you have a healthy outlook on life, you try to be healthy, you exercise, you eat well, you feel better, you're going to live a longer and happier life. And that's what I want to do.
That's awesome. And then that in turn will pass along to the kids. And we see this sometimes, like the pendulum swinging. Like you want to go so far one way, providing for our children what we didn't have. And then in doing so, we kind of aren't able to give them the things that we did have. the integrity, the responsibility, the work ethic, those kinds of things. So just watching that pendulum. But overall, if we're happy, man, that's all there is to it. So I'm happy that you were here today, Chris. I love the conversation.
That you had me. Thank you so much.
It's awesome. And just like I say, with like so many different listeners, and having this conversation before we started rolling was just sharing the experience. There's so many little pieces that you just dropped there that, sometimes go unsaid and don't get talked about. But if we can make these decisions to be happy with what we have, content, but not complacent, being able to be happy with what we have, but still plan and work for the future, is enjoy the process, enjoy the family. You enjoy the rest of your night tonight, Chris.
Content, but not complacent.
Content, but not complacent. Thanks again for your time, man. Hey, if the listeners wanted to reach out with you, if maybe they're in the South Texas area, how can they connect with you?
So I am currently in Austin in South Texas, practicing pain management, Pain Specialist of America. You can look me up. My LinkedIn is Chris Massey, MD, and that's about it for now, but more to come, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. You enjoy the rest of your evening there, man.
I will. Thank you. Have a great day, Brett.
You too, man.
Bye.
If you're a physician thinking about long-term financial security, hey, start planning today. You can connect with Dr. Massey on LinkedIn at Chris Massey, MD. We'll drop that in the description. And as always, thank you for your time. And more importantly, thank you for your attention. This is the Real Estate Mogul, MD.